I believe. Lay down my one on altar stone, let fire take what I call my own. Break off the yoke I forged from me, teach me your way, and I will heed your kingdom first. My hunger last, my open hands.
Episode 14, Altar Stone. Part 4, The Surrender. Verse 3, lines 1 to 4. Lay down my want on altar stone. Let fire take what I called my own. Break off the yoke I forged from need. Teach me your weight, and I will heed. The walk to the altar is not a short one. I want to say that before anything else, because I think we can read these 4 lines and hear them as a single moment, a decision made, a thing laid down, a yoke broken, a lesson received. Clean, sequential, swift. And the reality of what these lines describe is none of those things. The walk to the altar stone is the entire journey of this series. Everything in part 1 and part 2 and part 3. The wound, the accusation, the crack in the anger, the dangerous prayer, the dark, the stripping, the shame, the sovereignty, the seeing of worth in what was kept. All of it has been the walk. These 4 lines are the arrival. And arrival, after a walk that long, is not a small thing. Lay down my want on altar stone. The first word is the hardest. Lay. It is a verb of deliberate action, not drop. Dropping implies accident, the involuntary releasing of something that slipped from your grip. Not throw. Throwing implies anger, the forceful rejection of something you are glad to be rid of. Lay. Carefully, intentionally, with full awareness of what you are holding and where you are placing it, and what is about to happen to it. This is not the movement of someone who no longer wants the thing. The want is still real. The hunger is still present. What has changed, through everything this series has walked through, is not the wanting, but the relationship to the wanting. The grip has loosened enough. The seeing of God's character has built enough trust. The recognition that His hand decides what hearts receive, and that His hand is a Father's hand. All of that has accumulated into something that makes this moment possible. Not easy, possible. You can lay it down not because it stopped mattering, but because you have seen enough of who God is to trust Him with it. The altar stone is an anvil. We said that in the overview, and I want to stay with it here because it changes everything about what laying the want down actually means. You are not placing the want on a surface of relinquishment, a place where things go to be left behind. You are placing it on a surface of transformation. The stone is hard because transformation requires resistance. The fire is coming because transformation requires heat. The hammer is coming because transformation requires force. And the craftsman who holds the hammer knows exactly, with a precision that has never failed once, what he is making from the material you have placed before him. You are not abandoning the want. You are submitting it. Let fire take what I called my own. That phrase, what I called my own, is doing precise and important work. Not what was mine, what I called mine. The distinction is everything. Because the desire for love, for belonging, for purpose, for recognition, for a life that means something, these things were never actually mine to own. They were always his to give or keep or transform according to his wisdom. But I called them mine. I built my identity around them. I measured my worth by whether I had them. I constructed the case that I deserved them and pointed my pain at God when he didn't deliver them on my terms. What I called my own is the honest accounting of that. And letting fire take it is not the destroying of the underlying desire, it is the burning away of the ownership, the false claim, the pride of deserving, the measuring stick identity. The fire takes all of that and leaves the desire itself, purified, freed from what was corrupting it, ready to be shaped into something that was never accessible to the want in its old form. Break off the yoke I forged from need. I keep returning to the word forged because it is the right word and it is an honest word, and I want to sit inside its honesty for a moment. A yoke that is forged is not a yoke that was placed on you against your will by someone else. You made it. From need, from the long, accumulated, unanswered hunger that had to go somewhere and went into building, into the striving, into the selfish ambition that dressed itself as drive, into the identity constructed entirely from lack and the desperate attempt to fill it. We forge our own yokes, not because we are villains, because we are human, because need that has nowhere clean to land will build its own structure, and the structure it builds is always a form of bondage. The bondage of a life organized entirely around the getting of what we don't have. The comparison that never rests. The measuring that never satisfies. The striving that produces achievement but not peace. The forge breaks it off with hammer and fire, because a forged thing requires a forge to undo it. You cannot reason your way out of a yoke you hammered onto yourself over years of living. You cannot discipline your way out of it. You cannot simply decide one morning that you will stop being bound by it and find that the decision holds. The breaking requires the same fire and force that the making required, applied by hands that know what they are doing and will not stop until the thing is free. That is not a comfortable process. The breaking of a forged yoke is violent in its own way. It pulls at things that have been there long enough to feel structural. It disturbs the architecture that the need built. It leaves a space where the yoke was that will have to be filled with something else, something lighter, something true, something that was always meant to be there instead. Teach me your weight, and I will heed. This line is the hinge of the four. Everything before it is about what is being removed, the want laid down, the false ownership burned away, the yoke broken off. This line is about what is being received in its place. Your weight. Not the absence of weight. Not the arrival at a life unburdened and effortless and free from the pull of desire. A different weight. His weight. The weight of what he values, what he calls important, what he considers worth carrying. The weight of a kingdom-oriented life rather than a self-oriented one. The weight of a yoke that is, as he said himself, easy and light, not because it demands nothing, but because the one who shares it is strong enough to carry what we cannot. Teach me, not give me. Teach me. Because this is not a transaction where the old yoke is exchanged for the new one in a single moment. This is a learning, a formation. The slow, practiced, repeated choosing of his weight over the old familiar weight of need and comparison and striving. The heeding that has to be renewed every time the old hunger rises and the old measuring starts and the hand reaches back toward what was laid on the stone. And it will rise again. I want to be honest about that. The laying down is not a one-time event that solves the problem permanently. The want has been transformed, not removed, which means it will surface again in new forms, testing the transformation, asking whether the trust that walked it to the altar is still holding. The heeding is a daily thing, a returning thing, a brought back again and again thing. But here is what I know from the inside of this. Each time you return to the altar, it is shorter. The walk is still real, but it covers less ground, because the transformation is cumulative. Each time the want is submitted to the forge, something more is burned away. Each time the yoke is broken, the new one fits more naturally. Each time his weight is chosen over the old familiar weight, the choosing becomes slightly less costly than it was before. Not automatic, not effortless, but shorter, lighter, more true. Teach me your weight, and I will heed. That is the prayer underneath the surrender. Not, take this from me and leave me empty. Transform it. Break the old structure. Teach me what you value. Let the forge do what forges do, and I will heed. That last phrase is a commitment. Small, unadorned, 3 words, and the weight of the whole journey behind them. I have been to the wound. I have made the accusation. I have been in the dark. I have consented to the stripping. I have seen your sovereignty. I have walked to the stone. I will heed. Not perfectly, not without turning back sometimes, not without the hunger rising again and the old desire finding its old object again, and the walk back to the altar needing to be made again. But I will heed. Because the craftsman is trustworthy. Because the fire knows what it is doing. Because the weight he is teaching me is lighter than the yoke I forged. And because I have seen enough of who he is to believe that what he is making from what I have laid down is worth the making.
I will bow, I believe.